At first glance, Tokyo looks flawless. The streets are spotless, the trains glide in right on time, and there's that soft, orderly hush that seems to wrap the whole city in calm. But tucked just behind that polished surface is a quiet story most people barely mention, the story of those with no home to return to. In 2024, official Japanese statistics put the number of people experiencing homelessness at around 2,600, the lowest in decades. Yet many researchers believe the real figure is 3 or 4 times higher once you count the hidden homeless people spending the night in 24-hour internet cafes, sleeping in their cars, or rotating from one friend's couch to another. Homelessness in Japan rarely crashes down in the same explosive way it so often does in places like Los Angeles or San Francisco. It's subtle, almost invisible. In the US, you can drive through Skid Row or Kensington and see it immediately tense lining the sidewalks, aging RVs, and the pain etched openly on people's faces. In Japan, that same hardship slips into the background behind vending machines in quiet parks, or inside 24-hour cafes, where people pretend to be customers, just to hold on to a warm seat until morning. The contrast with homeless in America isn't only in the numbers, it's in how each society chooses to avert its gaze. I once asked a Japanese friend, if you lost everything, would you ask for help? He gave a small, almost embarrassed smile and said, "That would bring shame to my whole family." In the United States, the fall is often public, visible, tragic, and loud. In Japan, it's slow, restrained, and heartbreakingly solitary. After the economic bubble burst in the 1990s, that so-called lost decade shattered jobs and hopes alike, pushing the number of people living on the streets to more than $25,000 by 2003. Today, with roughly 90% of those counted being middle-aged men, averaging around 60 and more than a third over 70, it's a stark reminder of how a relentless system can wear down even the toughest and leave them behind. Surprisingly, about 40% say they feel a quiet sense of acceptance with their situation, collecting cans by day, looking up at the stars in silence at night. But what if this success story of cutting the official count by nearly 90% over 20 years is in part a polite mask? One that covers stubborn age discrimination in hiring, steep rents that require several months' deposit up front, and a culture of silence that shames people into hiding their struggles. Because while homeless in America is often raw, loud, and impossible to ignore, Japan's version is muted, controlled, and every bit as human. So we have to ask, how can a nation known for empathy allow so many to slip quietly into the shadows? And how much of that silence springs from cultural pride, and how much from simple refusal to face the problem? This piece will dig into both the visible and invisible realities behind that 2,500 homeless people figure in Japan, exploring why a wealthy, orderly country admired for its safety still leaves people living on its edges. Stay with me not just to read, but to really look, listen, and rethink what it means for any civilized society to confront its own loneliness and poverty. This article is offered for reflection, analysis, and education. It is not written to attack or insult any person, organization, or nation. All data is drawn from public, credible sources, and every viewpoint shared here is personal speaking for no official institution or authority. The current reality of homelessness in Japan. To be honest, Japan is not what many people picture when they think of homelessness. We're used to those immaculate streets, trains that never seem to run late, and a layer of quiet order over cities like Tokyo. But behind that discipline lies a reality the country rarely speaks about. Openly, people quietly slipping through the gaps of a system built on stability. The number of people visibly sleeping outside is at a record low, but the full picture is far more complicated. In the January 2025 survey by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, MHLW officials counted 2,591 people experiencing homelessness nationwide. Osaka carries the largest share with 763, Tokyo follows with 565, and Kanagawa reports 366. Meanwhile, 9 rural prefectures reported 0 on paper, as if the issue simply vanishes once you step away from the big cities. And where do people actually stay? Roughly 25% sleep in large city parks, 24% rest along sidewalks like silent sentries, and 22% set up near riverbanks where the sound of flowing water might dull the loneliness for a while. Only about 6% are counted in train stations. It makes you wonder, why do so few appear in rural areas? Is it stronger family safety nets out there? Or does distance and isolation simply swallow their stories before they're ever recorded? Looking back just a bit, the January 2024 count listed 2,820 people. In 2023, it was 3,065, about 0.002% of the population, with roughly 94% men and 6% women. The downward trend is clear on paper. But even official sources admit the method only counts those visibly living outside. It excludes anyone who is without a fixed address, but staying overnight in internet cafes, capsule hotels, stations, or vehicles. In other words, the part you see is just the small tip of an iceberg whose real weight lies below the surface. And that hidden part has another face: net cafe refugees, people renting tiny booths in 24-hour manga or internet cafes, washing up, charging their phones, and slipping out at dawn. Even before the pandemic, estimates suggested thousands in Tokyo alone were living this way. When COVID forced many of those cafes to close or shorten their hours, a number of them suddenly appeared on the streets in plain view. So what does it tell you when your shelter depends on a business staying open all night instead of on an actual home? The result is a paradox. The sidewalks look neat. The official count is low, yet precarious lives continue in the warm glow of net cafe cubicles, late-night parking lots, and stories buried deep beneath pride and silence. Am I hopeful? Yes, about Japan's ability to organize and respond when it truly decides to. Deeply uneasy about the quiet burden carried by those who endure everything alone through winter nights, just to appear fine in the eyes of others the next day. That's the kind of truth that doesn't easily fit into a statistic. The quiet reasons behind Japan's homeless crisis. There's a subtle kind of tragedy unfolding behind Japan's polished image of order. Beneath the neon, the efficiency, and the calm lies a set of layered reasons why so many Japanese homeless men and Japanese homeless youth end up under bridges in parks or tucked into the shadows of net cafes in Tokyo and beyond. It's not just about poverty, it's not just about bad luck. It's a tightly woven mix of economy, culture, and pride that Japan has carried for decades, and that now shapes its version of homelessness just as deeply as the forces driving homeless in America. Start with the economy, because sooner or later, everything circles back to it. After the asset bubble burst in the 1990s, the economy never fully recovered its footing. What emerged was a fragile labor market, a dual system where full-time employees are protected and everyone else exists in a permanent state of uncertainty. According to OECD figures, nearly 22 million workers in Japan now hold temporary part-time or otherwise unstable positions, over 40% of the entire workforce. That number speaks volumes. Pay for those workers often hovers at the edge of subsistence, and benefits are minimal or non-existent. Meanwhile, Tokyo's rents keep climbing, while landlords still commonly require key money, multiple months of deposit, and proof of steady income. For anyone juggling low-wage or irregular work, getting into an apartment can feel nearly impossible. Many middle-aged single men, once part of Japan's proud, stable working class, now find themselves quietly shut out casualties of subtle but powerful age discrimination. After a certain age, especially past 35 or 40, the system isn't very forgiving. For some, the street ends up being the only place that doesn't demand an explanation. But you can't explain this crisis with economics alone. Much of its weight sits inside the culture itself. Japan is a society that values dignity and self-reliance, sometimes to a painful extreme. Failure carries stigma, and asking for help can feel like bringing shame onto your family. Many people experiencing homelessness avoid government assistance, not because they're unaware of it, but because they don't want to be a burden. In a culture where family honor can matter more than individual suffering, losing your home can feel like losing your place in the world. Families, when they can often rally around women and children first. Men are expected to endure, to gammon, to grit their teeth and carry on. That expectation leaves many drifting toward isolation. Some become hikikomori, or part of what you might call the invisible homeless, in Tokyo, Japan, physically present, socially erased. It's a kind of homelessness of the heart long before it becomes homelessness of the body. Then there are the shocks no one plans for, both natural and social. The 2011 earthquake and tsunami wiped out homes and livelihoods across entire regions. The COVID-19 pandemic hammered service industries and tourism, wiping out many of the low-wage jobs people relied on to get by. And as the population grows older, another quiet truth emerges: nearly a third of Japan's homeless population is now over 70. They're not only without work, they're aging in isolation, often too proud or too tired to start over. You can see some of them at dawn in places like Ueno Park, carefully folding cardboard, as if they're folding away what's left of their pride. So what's really to blame? The economy, the culture, the silence between the two, or all of it at once? If a country as wealthy and orderly as Japan can let so many slip through its safety nets, what does that say about how we measure success in Japan or in any nation facing its own homeless in America reality? Because at the end of the day, the struggles of Japan, homeless teens, the older Japanese homeless man sitting quietly by the river, and the unseen homeless in Tokyo, Japan, all grow from the same painful contradiction. A society built on discipline, loyalty, and pride, yet still struggling to fully embrace its own wounded. It's a mirror Japan rarely pauses to face, but it's one that can't be avoided much longer. New forms of homelessness in Japan. There's a quiet shift unfolding across Japan, a new kind of homelessness that doesn't always show up under bridges or on cardboard sheets. It hides behind glowing computer screens inside cramped cubicles or in parked cars on the edge of the city. Some call it digital homelessness, but to me it feels more like invisible survival. Walk through Shinjuku at midnight, and you'll see what the media calls the Japan Homeless Internet Cafe. Crowd men and women renting tiny booths by the hour, scrolling through job postings, watching videos, or just trying to rest under harsh fluorescent lights. On paper, they aren't counted as homeless because they have a roof. But what do you call a home that charges by the hour? And how long can someone live like that before the loneliness costs more than the cubicle fee? Then there are the Japanese homeless, living in car people sleeping in parking lots after job loss, divorce, or eviction. Their belongings are stacked neatly in the back seat. They wash up at public restrooms before heading to work like nothing's wrong. Some still have full-time jobs, yet they can't scrape together the deposits landlords demand or find a Japan cheap house in cities where affordable might as well mean unreachable. That's the strange paradox of modern Japan people who look stable by day, but have nowhere real to return to at night. Technology, of course, has stepped in with glossy promises startups like Smart Property Japan, advertising micro apartments, flexible contracts, and digital booking. But beneath the sleek branding, many of these solutions still cost more than a struggling worker can manage. The line between temporary and permanent has blurred so much that some people now drift from one digital address to the next instead of putting their name on an actual mailbox. So what do we call it when someone has Wi-Fi but no real home? When a person rents a cubicle and still doesn't feel seen? Maybe the face of homelessness in Japan isn't the image most people hold. It's not only the man with a blanket under a bridge, it's the woman dozing upright in an internet booth, the delivery driver napping in his van between shifts, the older man refreshing job listings on a public screen. In the United States, Homeless in America often looks loud and undeniable tents, RVs, visible encampments. In Japan, homelessness isn't disappearing. It's evolving, slipping behind tidy facades and silent screens. And maybe that's the most difficult kind to recognize because from far away it looks almost normal. Efforts and support policies. To be fair, Japan hasn't simply looked the other way. Over the past 20 years, the government has put real effort into confronting homelessness in Japan, even if the issue is far messier than any single policy can solve. Since 2002, the Act on Support for Independence of the Homeless has guaranteed access to basic livelihood support housing, assistance, healthcare, and food. Yearly surveys by the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare now anchor national strategy, guiding how the country tracks and tackles the Japan homeless reality. On the ground, big cities like Tokyo and Osaka started experimenting with responses back in the late 1990s. Tokyo's first dedicated shelter opened in 1997, offering not just a bed, but temporary housing, career counseling, and job placement services. Specialized programs were also created for women, especially any Japanese homeless woman escaping domestic violence, providing a safe place to sleep, trauma, care counseling, and job training aimed at rebuilding independence. Nonprofits like Tenohasi and Big Issue Japan fill the gaps government programs can't reach. They serve meals, run night outreach, teach daily living and work skills, and have helped an estimated 70% of their regular participants return to some form of employment. Since 2021, the number of people visibly sleeping outside has dropped by more than a third. But that raises a tough question: does lowering the count really mean restoring dignity? Or have many simply slipped indoors into net cafes, cars, and unstable rooms, just as Homeless in America often includes couch surfing and car sleeping that never shows up in official charts? Internationally, Japan has partnered with UNICEF to support children without stable housing. In Osaka, the Japan Small House model offers compact, affordable homes for older residents seeking a final peaceful place to live. Programs like SilverNet use digital tools and local volunteers to reconnect elderly homeless people with communities, proof that compassion doesn't have to be loud to be real. Even so, critics say much of this progress is concentrated in big cities, while rural areas remain largely off the radar. So the lingering question is, this is Japan's empathy, confined to the glow of Tokyo's parks and Osaka's shelters? Or can that same care reach the quiet villages, aging towns, and hidden struggles that rarely make headlines, but are every bit as real as any Homeless in America story? Conclusion. Talking about homelessness in Japan leaves a quiet ache. Officially, only about 600 people were sleeping outdoors in 2025, but numbers smooth over real hurt. Each one is someone's parent, someone's child, once certain they belonged in a proud, orderly country. Now many drift between internet cafes, car seats, and 24-hour shops nearly invisible. Japan still calls itself a model of order, but at what cost and to whom? If thousands more are sleeping in net cafes or cramped cubicles, that's homelessness too, just hidden. The real shift begins when we stop asking, how did he fail, and start asking what failed him. Until then, like with Homeless in America, the streets will keep telling a truth we'd rather not face.